Life is a journey full of unexpected twists. Some paths lead us to success, while others take us through unimaginable hardships. But no matter what we face, it's the choices we make that define who we become. This is the story of Michael, a man whose life seemed perfect, until betrayal shattered everything he thought he knew. In this video, we dive into a tale of love, loss, and redemption. A story where trust is broken, alliances are tested, and vengeance fuels a man's journey. But what happens when the very thing he fights for, his family, his future, becomes the key to his ultimate transformation? Stay tuned, because this is more than just a story of revenge. It's about finding strength when everything falls apart, learning to rebuild from the ashes, and discovering what truly matters in life. Are you ready to walk alongside Michael in this emotional roller coaster? Let's begin. Michael had always prided himself on being a hardworking man. After a long day at work, he returned home to his quiet house, hoping to find comfort. But as he entered the living room, the silence was deafening. His wife, Emily, sat on the couch, absent-mindedly scrolling through her phone, not even looking up when he walked in. "Hey," Michael said, trying to break the ice. "Hey," Emily replied, her tone cold and distant. The lack of warmth, the absence of affection, were becoming all too familiar. Their conversations had become brief and mechanical, like two strangers passing through life together. The distance between them had grown insurmountable over the past few months. Michael felt the walls closing in, but he couldn't figure out why things had changed. Their once happy marriage had become a mere shadow of what it used to be. No longer did Emily greet him with a kiss, no longer did they share long talks over dinner. The silence between them had become a loud presence that neither could ignore. One evening, after a particularly tense argument with Emily, Michael decided to investigate. He had a gut feeling that something was amiss. As he walked through the house, he noticed something unusual. There, hidden behind the air conditioning unit, was Emily's burner phone, something she'd never used before. It was a strange, old model, nothing like the sleek phone she carried every day. Curious, Michael picked it up. On the screen was a text message that made his blood run cold: "Looking forward to our meeting tomorrow. Let's make it memorable." His heart sank. Michael knew the implications. Emily was having an affair. The shock of it all left him reeling, but he wasn't ready to confront her just yet. He needed proof. Determined to get to the bottom of this betrayal, Michael began to secretly install surveillance cameras around the house. He needed more than just a text message to confront Emily and the man she was seeing. It wasn't just about revenge, it was about taking control of a life that had been torn apart. Days later, his suspicions were confirmed. Michael watched in horror as Emily met with Nathan, her colleague and his longtime friend. In one of the video clips, they embraced passionately before disappearing into the guest bedroom. It was a devastating blow, but now Michael had the evidence he needed. The betrayal cut deeper than he could have imagined. Nathan, a man who had been by his side for years, had been sleeping with his wife behind his back. Michael's rage bubbled over, but he quickly began to formulate a plan. Michael decided it was time to confront the two people who had broken his trust. With the video footage in hand, he called Emily into the living room, the place where they used to laugh and share their dreams. "Emily," he said, his voice steady but laced with pain, "I know everything. I saw the videos. I know about you and Nathan." Emily's face went pale. She tried to explain, but her words faltered. "Michael, please, it's not what you think." "I don't," he cut her off, his voice rising. "It's exactly what I think. You've been cheating on me with him, and it's not just an affair. You've been plotting with him to take my company down too, haven't you?" Emily looked away, unable to meet his eyes. "I want a divorce," Michael continued, the finality in his voice. "And I'm taking full custody of our daughter, Zoe." Zoe, Michael's teenage daughter, overheard the conversation from the hallway. She had been quietly listening, her heart racing as she processed the truth. She had always sensed something was off, but hearing it confirmed was devastating. Her mother and Nathan had betrayed her father, the man who had given everything for their family. Shocked and upset, Zoe confronted Michael the next day. "Dad, is it true? Did Mom really do that to you?" Michael sighed, his heart heavy. "I'm sorry you had to hear that, sweetheart. But yes, it's true." Despite the betrayal, Zoe stood by her father. She chose to support him in his darkest time, helping him with the legal battles and providing comfort when he needed it most. Michael appreciated her strength, and their bond grew even closer as they navigated the difficult months that followed. The aftermath of Michael's confrontation was swift and brutal. Emily was thrown out of their home, losing not only her family but also her sense of security. Her relationship with Nathan quickly unraveled as well. As the public knowledge of their affair spread, Nathan's career as an executive was destroyed. An internal investigation into his financial misconduct, aided by the evidence Michael had gathered, led to his disgrace and eventual firing. Nathan was not only left with nothing but the shame of his actions, but his reputation was forever tarnished. Emily, too, was left to pick up the pieces of her life. She had lost the man she betrayed, the company she had helped to undermine, and the family she had destroyed. Her dreams were shattered, and there was no going back. The aftermath of Michael's confrontation was swift and brutal. Emily was thrown out of their home, losing not only her family but also her sense of security. Her relationship with Nathan quickly unraveled as well. As the public knowledge of their affair spread, Nathan's career as an executive was destroyed. An internal investigation into his financial misconduct, aided by the evidence Michael had gathered, led to his disgrace and eventual firing. Nathan was not only left with nothing but the shame of his actions, but his reputation was forever tarnished. Emily, too, was left to pick up the pieces of her life. She had lost the man she betrayed, the company she had helped to undermine, and the family she had destroyed. Her dreams were shattered, and there was no going back. With Claire's support, Michael began to rebuild his life, both personally and professionally. He focused on his work, re-establishing his business with the help of his daughter Zoe. They worked together to strengthen the company, ensuring it was secure for the future. Through it all, Michael learned that while the past could never be erased, it didn't have to define him. As the years passed, Michael found a sense of peace. He spent more time with Zoe, watching her grow into a strong, independent young woman. Together, they created a new life, a life built on trust, love, and the strength to overcome any obstacle. One day, as Michael sat in his office, reflecting on how far he had come, Zoe joined him. "Dad," she said, "I'm really proud of you." Michael smiled, grateful for the new chapter in his life. "Thank you, sweetheart. I'm proud of you too. We've been through a lot, but we've come out stronger. We've built something better, together." And with that, Michael finally understood that victory wasn't about getting revenge, As Michael settled into his new life, he realized that the business he had spent years building also needed a fresh start. Without Nathan's manipulative influence and Emily's distractions, Michael could finally focus on what mattered most, growing his company with integrity and rebuilding relationships that had been strained. But he knew it wasn't going to be easy. Claire, now more than just a legal advisor, became his trusted business partner. Together, they worked tirelessly to secure new contracts and streamline operations. It wasn't just about making money, it was about creating a legacy of honesty and loyalty, something Michael had been robbed of in his personal life. Zoe, always sharp and driven, joined her father in leading the company, providing fresh perspectives and innovative ideas. It became a family effort, and Michael began to see that this, working side by side with his daughter and Claire, was what true success looked like. Months passed, and the business began to thrive once again. Michael had found his rhythm, and his relationship with Claire blossomed into a meaningful partnership. They had both been through heartbreak, but together, they had found a sense of purpose. The journey wasn't easy, but it was worth it. Despite his progress, there were moments when Michael would catch himself reflecting on the past. Sometimes, in the quiet hours of the evening, he would wonder how things might have turned out if Emily had never betrayed him. But those thoughts were fleeting. He had learned, through all of his suffering, that regret served no purpose. One evening, while he was having dinner with Zoe and Claire, he received an unexpected message. It was from Emily, asking to meet. For a moment, Michael froze. His heart, still raw from the years of pain, skipped a beat. Why now? He muttered to himself. He had no intention of forgiving her anytime soon. But after considering it, he realized that meeting might offer closure, a final step in moving forward. The meeting was set at a small, quiet cafe, neutral ground, where neither side would feel threatened. Michael arrived first, his nerves steadying with every passing second. He knew he wasn't here to reconcile with Emily, but rather to look her in the eyes and confront the person who had caused him so much pain. When Emily walked in, she looked different, haggard, a shadow of the confident woman he had once known. She wasn't the woman he had fallen in love with. She was someone who had lost herself in her choices, someone who had torn apart the life they had built together. "Michael," she said quietly, taking a seat. Her voice cracked with emotion. "I never wanted it to end like this." Michael stared at her, his gaze cold but composed. "Then why did you do it, Emily? Why betray me? Why destroy everything?" She sighed, looking down at her hands. "I don't know. I've been lost. Nathan, he promised me things. Things that made me feel special, things I wasn't getting at home." Michael's jaw tightened. He'd heard enough. "You were never alone, Emily. I was here. But you chose him. And now, here we are." There was a long pause before Emily spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. "I'm sorry, Michael. For everything. I can't undo what I've done, but I want you to know I never meant to hurt you this way." Michael took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her words but not allowing them to break him. "Your apology doesn't fix the damage, Emily. It's too late for that. But I'm moving on. I'm better without you." Emily nodded, tears welling in her eyes. "I understand. I just needed you to hear it from me." The conversation ended quietly. There were no apologies to mend their broken past, but for Michael, it was a form of closure. He stood up, shaking his head slightly. "Goodbye, Emily." As he walked away from the cafe, he realized that the closure he had been seeking wasn't about forgiveness, it was about learning to let go. Letting go of the past, the hurt, and the regret. He could never change what happened, but he could control how he moved forward. Weeks turned into months, and Michael found himself more focused than ever. His bond with Zoe and Claire only grew stronger. They had become his family, not by blood but by choice. Together, they created something much stronger than what Michael had ever thought possible. His life was no longer defined by the pain of betrayal. Instead, it was built on the strength of the relationships he had chosen to invest in, the ones that were rooted in trust, respect, and mutual support. One afternoon, as they celebrated a significant business milestone, Michael looked out over the city skyline, feeling a sense of fulfillment he had never experienced before. He realized that, in the end, it wasn't the revenge or the destruction of his enemies that mattered. What mattered was finding peace, building something solid, and loving those who truly cared about him. To family, Michael said, raising his glass with Zoe and Claire by his side. To new beginnings, Zoe added with a smile, clinking her glass against his. And as they celebrated, Michael knew that the future, whatever it held, was his to shape. Years passed, and Michael's life continued to evolve. He no longer thought of Emily or Nathan every day, but when their names crossed his mind, it was with indifference, not bitterness. He had learned the value of peace, and that was something no amount of revenge could ever provide. Zoe, now an adult, had started her own path, taking on more responsibilities in the company and making her own mark on the world. Claire remained a steady presence by his side, both in business and life, and their relationship continued to grow in depth and meaning. Michael was no longer defined by the betrayal or the losses he had suffered. He was defined by the strength to rebuild, the love he shared with his daughter, and the future he was continuing to build with Claire. Looking back at the man he was before all of this happened, Michael couldn't help but feel a sense of pride. He had come through the storm, stronger than ever, and now, as he stood alongside the people he loved most, he was ready to face whatever came next, with hope, love, and an unshakable belief in the power of resilience. It had been several years since Michael had fully rebuilt his life. His business was thriving, his relationship with Claire was stronger than ever, and Zoe had become a confident and ambitious young woman, eager to carve out her own future. The shadows of betrayal no longer haunted him, he was living the life he had fought so hard to regain. But as with all stories of healing and growth, the past has a way of resurfacing when least expected. One afternoon, Michael was in his office, finalizing a new deal when an unexpected email appeared on his screen. It was from Emily. The subject line read, "We need to talk." Michael's first instinct was to delete it immediately, but something made him pause. He hadn't heard from her in years, why reach out now? For a moment, he considered ignoring it. He had moved on, and Emily was no longer a part of his life. But then, curiosity got the best of him. He clicked open the email. The message was simple, "Michael, I need your help. Please, let's meet. I've made mistakes, and I need your advice. I don't know who else to turn to." Michael felt a wave of emotions wash over him. It had been years since he'd heard from her. He remembered the pain, the betrayal, but he also knew that people could change, or at least, they could try. He closed his laptop and stood up. Claire was in the other room, and Michael knew this would be a conversation that needed her support. He had to decide whether or not to face Emily again. Later that evening, Michael sat down with Claire to talk about the email. His voice was steady but conflicted as he recounted what had happened. "Claire," he began, "Emily reached out to me today. She wants to meet. She says she needs help. I'm not sure what to do. Part of me wants to leave the past in the past, but another part of me feels like I should at least listen to what she has to say." Claire looked at him thoughtfully, her expression calm but supportive. "Michael, you've come so far. I understand your hesitation, but remember what you've learned. This is about you, about your peace. If you decide to meet with her, it's because you want to understand her motives, not because you need to relive the pain. You owe it to yourself to make the decision that feels right." Michael nodded, appreciating her wisdom. "You're right. I've healed, but I still have questions. I need closure, not for her, but for me." After some reflection, Michael made the decision to meet with Emily, not because he thought they could reconcile, but because he wanted to understand her reasons. To finally close the door, once and for all. The next week, Michael agreed to meet Emily at a quiet cafe. He walked into the place, feeling both nervous and resolute. He didn't know what to expect, but he knew he was in control of the situation. When Emily arrived, she looked different, dressed plainly, her face showing signs of age and regret. She no longer had the air of someone who thought they could get away with everything. Instead, she seemed fragile, vulnerable, as if the weight of her past choices had broken her. "Michael," she said softly, her voice trembling. "Thank you for agreeing to meet. I don't expect forgiveness, but I needed to tell you the truth." Michael nodded, sitting across from her, his posture guarded but open. "Go ahead. I'm listening." Emily sighed deeply before speaking. "I made a huge mistake, not just in what I did to you, but in how I handled everything. Nathan, he didn't care about me. He used me, and I was too blind to see it until it was too late. I lost everything, my family, my career, my self-respect." Michael listened quietly. He didn't interrupt, though part of him wanted to. He didn't know whether to feel pity or anger, but he understood that Emily's story wasn't about him anymore. It was about her own journey, her own reckoning. "I don't know what I was hoping for," Emily continued. "I don't expect anything from you. I just wanted to tell you that I've changed, and I regret everything." Michael sat back, processing her words. For the first time, he saw Emily not as the woman who betrayed him, but as a woman who had been lost. Her regret was genuine, but he knew that no amount of remorse could undo the damage. "Emily," Michael said, his voice firm but calm, "I've forgiven you in my heart long ago. But forgiveness doesn't mean I need to let you back into my life. We're both better off moving forward separately." Tears welled in Emily's eyes, but she nodded. "I understand. Thank you for listening, Michael." As the conversation came to an end, Michael left the cafe feeling surprisingly calm. He had found the closure he needed, not in Emily's apology, but in his own ability to face the past and let it go. He had learned that sometimes, closure didn't come from the other person, it came from within. The days following the meeting felt strangely peaceful for Michael. He had cleared the last lingering weight from his past, and now he could fully focus on the present and future with Claire and Zoe. He didn't need to worry about what could have been. He had built something new, something better. Zoe, seeing how much her father had changed, began to open up more about her own struggles. She confided in him about the challenges she was facing in college and her growing pains as she navigated adulthood. Michael was there for her every step of the way, offering wisdom, love, and support. Claire remained his steadfast partner, not only in business but in life. Together, they made a great team, and their bond deepened with each passing day. Michael had learned that love wasn't just about being together in good times, it was about standing together through the storms. As Michael looked ahead, he felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. He had rebuilt his life, piece by piece, and had learned to cherish the relationships that mattered most. He had grown into someone stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. His past no longer held him captive. The betrayal, the heartbreak, the anger, it had all shaped him, but it didn't define him. He was now the man who had learned how to let go and embrace the future with open arms. One evening, as he and Claire sat on the porch, watching the sun set over the horizon, Michael felt content. Zoe had just finished a video call with her friends, and Claire was reading a book by his side. Everything was as it should be. "To new beginnings," Michael said, raising his glass once again. "To the future," Claire responded, smiling. And as the night drew to a close, Michael knew that the journey he had been on, one of loss, pain, and rebirth, had ultimately brought him to a place of peace. The future was bright, and for the first time in a long while, he felt ready to face whatever came next. Just as Michael thought his life had finally reached a sense of stability, a new challenge arose, this time, not from his past, but from his present. The company he had worked so hard to rebuild was facing a crisis of its own, and it threatened everything he and Claire had built together. It all started when a prominent investor, who had been backing their expansion plans, suddenly pulled out. The investor claimed that recent market conditions were unstable, but Michael had a gut feeling that something was off. The financial stability of the company, and all the hard work they had put in, now seemed at risk. For the first time in a long while, Michael felt a surge of anxiety. The past had been hard enough, now, it seemed the future was once again under threat. But he refused to let it break him. "I knew it would happen sooner or later," Claire said, sensing his unease. "But we'll figure this out. We've been through worse, remember?" Michael nodded, trying to suppress the growing sense of panic inside. "We need to act fast. If we don't find a way to stabilize our finances, this could end everything we've worked for." They both knew that this wasn't just a financial issue, it was a test of their leadership, their ability to survive in a competitive and volatile world. The company wasn't just a business to them, it was a reflection of their resilience, their commitment to creating something that lasted. As Michael and Claire worked to figure out how to stabilize the business, they stumbled upon an even bigger problem. While they were reviewing the company's books, they found discrepancies that suggested someone had been embezzling funds. It was a gut punch. After everything they had been through, this was the last thing they needed. Michael's heart sank as the realization hit him. Someone on their team, someone they trusted, was stealing from them. He couldn't fathom who it could be, but he knew they had to find out quickly before it could bring everything crashing down. How could this happen? Michael muttered to Claire as they pored over the evidence. We've worked so hard to build this, and now someone from within is trying to destroy it. Claire's face was grim. We have to find out who's behind this and make them pay, Michael. We can't let this slide. The betrayal cut deeper than anything they had faced before. After the personal betrayals of the past, now they were confronted with treachery within their own ranks. It felt like their world was once again teetering on the edge of collapse. Michael knew that they couldn't let the company fall. It wasn't just about money, it was about everything they had sacrificed to get here. He had to stay focused, not let his anger cloud his judgment. The investigation was intense, but after days of digging through financial records and interviewing employees, the culprit was revealed. It was none other than Samuel, one of the senior managers who had been with the company from the very beginning. Michael couldn't believe it. Samuel had always seemed trustworthy, hardworking, loyal, the kind of employee you'd expect to be a part of the company's success story. But it turned out that he had been siphoning off funds for months, creating fake invoices, and covering his tracks so well that no one suspected him. When Michael confronted Samuel, the manager seemed utterly defeated, his once confident demeanor crumbled. I didn't want to do it, Samuel confessed. But I was desperate. My personal life, it all fell apart, and I saw this as my only way out. Michael's anger flared, but he quickly controlled it. You've betrayed everything we've worked for, Samuel. You've betrayed the trust we put in you. And now, you've risked all of us. Samuel's face was pale, and he hung his head in shame. I didn't think it would go this far. I'm sorry. Michael. I never wanted to hurt you. Despite the apology, Michael knew that they had no choice but to report Samuel to the authorities. The law had been broken, and justice had to be served. It wasn't about revenge, it was about protecting the future of the company and everyone who had put their trust in it. The fallout from Samuel's betrayal was immediate. The company's finances were in disarray, and the investor who had pulled out remained skeptical of their ability to recover. But Michael and Claire refused to let this defeat them. This wasn't the first time they had faced adversity, and it wouldn't be the last. They worked tirelessly, cutting unnecessary expenses, restructuring their operations, and reaching out to other potential investors. Michael's leadership was put to the test as he navigated this new challenge with determination. He knew that if they could weather this storm, they would come out stronger on the other side. As the weeks passed, they managed to secure new funding and restore their financial stability. Though the road to recovery was long, Michael found solace in knowing that they were building something solid, something that wasn't just dependent on external factors, but on the strength of the people who had helped him get there. Claire and Zoe remained by his side, each playing a crucial role in the recovery process. Zoe, now a rising star within the company, proved herself invaluable, offering fresh ideas and a unique perspective on how to innovate their business strategy. In the months that followed, Michael realized that the recent struggles had taught him a profound lesson. Life, both personally and professionally, was full of unpredictability, but it was also full of opportunities for growth. The betrayal by Samuel, though painful, had ultimately strengthened their team and reaffirmed the values Michael had always believed in: loyalty, trust, and integrity. One quiet evening, after a long day of work, Michael stood outside his office, looking out over the city. The sun was setting, casting an orange glow across the skyline. He could hear Claire and Zoe talking in the other room, their voices a soothing reminder of what truly mattered in his life. He realized that the past, with all its pain, had shaped him into the man he was today. And while he had endured loss and betrayal, he had also gained a deeper understanding of what it meant to live a meaningful life. The future, though uncertain, was full of possibilities. To family, Michael whispered to himself, his thoughts drifting to the people who had stood by him. To the future, he added, as he turned to join Claire and Zoe, ready to face whatever challenges awaited them. Several years had passed since the betrayal by Samuel. Michael's company had bounced back stronger than ever, a testament to the resilience of both him and Claire. With the help of their dedicated team, they had not only rebuilt their finances but also transformed the company into an industry leader. Michael had learned, the hard way, that adversity could be an opportunity for reinvention. However, despite their external success, it was the emotional toll of the journey that weighed most heavily on him. Michael often found himself reflecting on everything he had been through, from the destruction of his family to the loss of trust and love, then the painstaking rebuilding process. It had been a long and difficult road, but as he looked at his life now, there was a sense of peace that had come with time and understanding. He was sitting on the porch of the house he and Claire had made their home, the sky painted with the colors of a fading sunset. Zoe was in the living room, her laughter echoing as she talked on the phone with friends, while Claire sat next to him, content in their shared silence. It was a peaceful evening, one of many they had come to cherish. "Do you ever think about how far we've come?" Claire asked, her voice soft as she leaned her head on his shoulder. Michael smiled, his eyes never leaving the horizon. "All the time. But I try not to dwell on it too much. The past shaped us, but it's the present that matters most now." Claire looked up at him, her eyes filled with warmth. "And we're here, together. It's all that matters." Their hands intertwined, and for a moment, the weight of the world seemed to lift. They had done it. Together, they had faced the worst and come out on the other side, stronger and more united. As time passed, the company continued to thrive. Michael was no longer just a businessman, he was a mentor, a leader who understood the importance of integrity and trust. His employees respected him not just for his achievements but for the way he treated them, the way he led by example. Michael had learned that success wasn't just about profits and growth, it was about the people who made it happen. One afternoon, as he sat in his office reviewing financial reports, a knock on the door broke his concentration. It was Zoe, now a young adult, standing in the doorway with a serious expression on her face. "Dad," she said, her voice full of resolve. "I need to talk to you." Michael gestured to the chair across from him. "Of course, sweetheart. What's on your mind?" Zoe sat down, taking a deep breath before speaking. "I've been thinking a lot about my future. About what I want to do, and how I want to live. I know you've built this company into something great, and you've worked hard to get here. But I don't think I want to follow the same path." Michael raised an eyebrow. He had always been supportive of Zoe's dreams, but hearing her express this choice made him feel both proud and unsure. "What do you mean?" "I don't know if I want to stay in the business world. I want to create something different. I have a passion for environmental sustainability, and I want to start a non-profit, something that makes a real difference. I need to go my own way." A mix of emotions stirred inside Michael. On one hand, he wanted to see his daughter succeed in whatever she chose. On the other, he feared that her decision might take her far away from everything they had built. "Zoe," he said, his voice steady, "I think it's incredible that you found something you're passionate about. You've seen how hard I've fought for what I've built, but you don't have to follow my footsteps. If this is your path, then go for it. Just make sure you know it's not going to be easy. But I believe in you." Zoe smiled, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thanks, Dad. That means everything." Michael reached across the desk, taking her hand in his. "Remember, no matter where life takes you, you always have a home here. And whatever you do, make sure it's something you believe in, something that leaves a legacy of trust and honesty." That's what matters most. Zoe nodded, her heart full of gratitude. I will, Dad. As Zoe embarked on her own path, Michael felt a profound sense of pride. He had always wanted his daughter to make her own mark on the world, to build something that resonated with her values. And now, he saw that same spark of determination in her eyes that had once driven him. Claire, too, had continued to thrive, taking on a leadership role in the company and working alongside Michael to ensure its growth and integrity. Together, they had forged a partnership that went beyond business. It was a bond built on trust, respect, and shared values. The company had become a symbol of everything they had learned: resilience, honesty, and the strength of love and family. Years later, as Michael and Claire sat on the same porch, watching the sunset once again, they reflected on the journey that had brought them here. The challenges, the heartbreak, the betrayals, they had all been part of the process of becoming who they were meant to be. Michael understood now that life wasn't just about overcoming obstacles, it was about finding meaning in the journey, in the moments of connection, and in the people who stood by your side. To us, Claire said, raising her glass toward him. To us, Michael echoed, smiling. And as they clinked their glasses, Michael knew that, despite everything they had been through, they had come full circle. The past was behind them, but the future was theirs to shape. The years passed quickly, as they tend to do when you are content. The business continued to thrive, and Michael's role as a father, a partner, and a mentor only deepened. Zoe's nonprofit grew exponentially, making a significant impact on the world around her. She had become the person Michael always knew she could be, someone with purpose and conviction, unafraid to follow her own path. One day, as Michael looked out at the horizon, he found himself thinking back to everything that had brought him here. The mistakes, the heartbreak, the moments of triumph, they had all led him to this place. And now, more than ever, he was at peace. He had learned that true success wasn't measured by wealth or accolades. It was measured by the connections you made, the people you loved, and the legacy you left behind. Michael's legacy wasn't about the company he built or the challenges he overcame, it was about the love, trust, and resilience that had carried him through it all. To the future, Michael whispered, as the sun dipped below the horizon. And with that, Michael let go of the past entirely, ready to embrace whatever came next, knowing that whatever the future held, he was more than prepared for it. Michael's journey was one of heartache, growth, and ultimately, redemption. It shows us that no matter how deep the betrayal or how painful the fall, we have the power to rise again, rebuild, and find a new path forward. But the question remains, what truly matters in the end? Is it the revenge we seek or the love and connections we hold dear? Michael's story leaves us with something to think about, doesn't it? If you enjoyed this story and want to see more incredible journeys like Michael's, make sure to hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments below. What would you have done if you were in Michael's shoes? We'd love to hear your thoughts. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss a new story. We've got more emotional, powerful tales coming your way, and we can't wait to share them with you. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes, the greatest victories come not from the battles we fight, but from the strength we find within ourselves.